All right, hey guys. You know as well as I do, if you were in class, that I struggled with lesson 4 or 5, and I really relied on Miss Reese and Miss Camp, and just to try to help me understand. So I'm going to do my best to help you understand. I feel like I have an okay understanding of it now, but we're always learning, and that's the fun part of math is sometimes we have to lean on each other and learn from a peer. And they're my peers, just like you have peers in class that you can rely on and ask questions to. And so we're going to work our way through 4 or 5 using models to multiply a decimal and a decimal. Basically, we're looking at area. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. Area is the number of square units needed to cover a surface. Area is measured in square units. So this area right here is equal to 12 square units because there are 12 boxes, 12 little squares in this one large box. So really, we could also look at this as an array, and this would be a 4 by 3, because there are put that 4 in the wrong place. There's 3 rows and 4 columns. So we've got 4 times 3, and we know 4 times 3 is 12. So the dimensions of the rectangle are blank units by blank units. Well, I just told you. We've got 1, 2, 3 in our columns, so it's 3 units by, and then we've got 4 in a row, so 4 units. So it's 3 by 4, and we know 3 by 4 is 12. So in this question, it says, or in this problem, it says each square shown has a side length of 1/10 unit. So that means that this is a tenth, this is a tenth, this is a tenth. This is a tenth, this is a tenth, this is a tenth, this is a tenth. They're all a tenth. Fill in the blanks to write a multiplication equation to match the model. Well, we already know that we have one multiple here, or one multiple, and so we know that this is taking care of 3/10. So we know that they're taking care of the columns. We've got 3/10 here. Okay, so we're going to be looking at, in a different color, the rows. How many are in the rows? 1, 2, 3, 4. So if they're represented by tenths, we know that we're not talking whole numbers, but we can make this whole number a decimal by moving that understood decimal that I was talking about in previous lessons. That's right here. We can move it one place to the left, and so it would be a tenth. So really, our multiplication problem is 0.3 or 3/10 times 0.4 or 4/10, and we know that that equals 12 hundredths. And we know that because if we did the standard algorithm, 0.3 times 0.4, we move it one place to the right, one place to the right. That's 2 decimal moves. 4 times 3 is 12. Here's my decimal. I got to move it 1, 2 places to the right, so my answer is 12 hundredths. Okay. All right. Hope that makes sense. So let's keep going. This one says shade a hundredths grid to model 6/10 times 4/10. So here's our hundredths model. So it says how many vertical columns, remember columns go up and down, rows go side to side. How many vertical columns will you shade to show 0.4 or 4/10? Well, there's 10 boxes in this. So I know that I will shade 4 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4. Be careful with this one. I don't want to get into the 5th column. Okay, so here's 4 columns in green. That's 4 columns shown. And then so we can say and answer this question, how many will you shade? You'll shade 4. How many horizontal rows will you shade to show 6/10? Well, we can shade 6/10 like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so now I have 6 rows shaded. And I know that 6 rows because 6/10 there's 10 square units in here, and they each equal a tenth. I know 6 of those will equal 6/10, so it's 6. And if we were to find the area of that, it would be the area that overlaps green and pink. So this is our answer to our problem. We could do this the inefficient way and count each individual square, or we could look at it and count and then multiply. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 4 by 6. Doesn't that match this? Yes, it does. So if I were to multiply this, 0.6 times 0.4, I make it a whole number by moving it one place to the right. I know 4 times 6 is 24. But because this is a whole number, I have to move my decimal back to the left 2 times, because I did 2 times up here, to get my accurate answer. So there are 24 square units right here in this area. This can be shown as 24 hundredths like this, or 24 over 100, because it's all about where they overlap. All right? So this one says, look at the model in problem 3. The product is represented by the area where the shading overlaps, which is what I just showed you. Count the squares and write an equation for the product. Well, we kind of already did that. Here's our equation. 6/10 times 4/10 equals 24 hundredths. So in our, oops, sorry, wrong slide. So it's already got 6/10 here. We know that the next answer, or next multiple, is going to be 4/10, and we know it's going to equal 24 hundredths. 6 times 4 is 24. Move a decimal place 2 places to the right to make it a whole number, and then move it back 2 places to the left to make it a decimal again. So 24 hundredths, or you could write 24 over 100. Okay? Look at this one. I want you to pause the video, and I want you to try to do this one on your own. So pause it, and then it will be answered when you unpause it. So it says shade the hundredths grid to help you find 8/10 times 4/10. Okay, well, I'm going to say that these are my columns. I'm going to do 8 columns. Okay, and they're going to be green. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to shade all of these in green. And it's good when you do this to have 2 different colors, so that way you can see, and I know we did this when we were reviewing that day, I think it was last Monday. We came together and we reviewed 4, 5 together as a whole. But it's good to have 2 colors, so that way you can see the 2 different shadings, and when they overlap, it's easier to tell where they overlap instead of using your pencil, because if you use your pencil, you're going to be really confused. So always good to have 2 different colors. All right, and then these are going to be my rows. I'm going to have 4 rows because we know that these equal a tenth. So 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10. So here's 4/10. Sorry, it went over a little bit on the 5th one, but just bear with me. I know it's a little difficult to color these in and be nice and neat. So now, when we are looking at this, we want to know the area in which they overlap. So we will have this area outlined in red. That is our answer to that's our product to this problem. And we can do the inefficient way by counting each individual square, or we can just count the squares on the top row and then count the columns. Well, in the columns, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know that this side's going to be 4 times, or 4/10 rather, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 4/10 by 8/10, which is exactly what this is. Now, I know that 8 times 4 is 32. But in order to make sure my decimal is in the right place, I always tell you to double check with the standard algorithm. So 8/10 times 4/10. If I were to make this a whole number, I move it one place to the right on both ones. So that's a total of 2 moves for my decimal. I know 8 times 4 or 4 times 8 is 32. This is an understood decimal here. So I know that it has to go back 2 places to the left to put it back where it came from. So my answer is 32 hundredths, or 32 over 100. That means there are 32 squares in this outlined area in red. And I think I just moved the slide by accident, but I didn't mean to. No, I did not. So there's your answer. Okay. So if you have any questions about this, feel free to bring them in and ask, and we can go over them together. But that basically sums up what will be covered on the test as well on Wednesday. So nothing too terrible. Won't be too difficult. You got this. I believe in you. You can always do some extra practice in your workbook for 4 or 5 that you take home. But other than that, if you have any questions, just let me know.